Good afternoon, everybody. It's me again. It is June 25th, about 10 to 5 in the afternoon. And today's video is going to be from the age of 18 to like 34, like right before I found out I was diabetic. Okay, so here we go. Alright, right after high school, I went right into the workforce. I didn't go to college till years later, and at age 21, I started dating this guy, Rob. We were dating for a few months, and he eventually had to move away. Well, after he moved away, we lost contact. But soon after he moved away, I wasn't feeling well as well either. I had such stomach aches, more migraines than usual, and I was throwing up, didn't understand it, but I was like, I just sucked it up to heartbreak. So I was like, whatever. And this was like the end of October of 2008. And I had known Sean for a few weeks at this point, just from being one of my customers at the one job I worked at. And he came in the one day and he's like, hey, what you up to? I said, not much. And he got his 2 Diet Pepsis, the 1 liters, 2 for $3. He always got. And I said, asked him how things were going with him and his girlfriend. He said, not so good. He asked how things were going with me and Rob. And I explained to him what I just explained to you. I don't need to repeat it. And I told him how I wasn't feeling well. He's like, oh, that's not good. And so eventually I had told my best girlfriend later that day that I haven't been feeling well. I don't know if it's just heartbreak from Rob leaving and not being able to get in contact with him or what it is. And she's like, it sounds like to me you're pregnant. I'm like, I can't be pregnant. But I did take a pregnancy test and it came out positive. So the only option I thought I had at the time was an abortion. Because I wasn't going to have the baby in my stomach for 9 months just to give it up. That would have been total heartbreak. And I didn't want to rely on my parents to raise my kid that I made the mistake. So abortion was my only option I had thought at the time. Meantime, the next time Sean comes in, we start talking and I told him how I was pregnant and I still can't get in contact with Rob. And he goes, well, here's my number. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Okay, so now it's November 18th of 2008. My youngest brother is in the hospital for his tonsils being taken out. And me and my other brother went to go visit him at the hospital, and then we went back home. He went to go visit his friend's house, and now I was in the house by myself, which leaves me time to think about this pregnancy because I haven't even told my parents at this point in time about what should I do. So I called Sean. I said, hey, what are you doing? He said, nothing. What are you doing? And I said, nothing. I told him how Bobby was in the hospital for his tonsils. And he goes, hey, look. He goes, how much gas do you have in your car? I tell him I have about a half a tank. And he said, all right, that's enough gas. He goes, I'll tell you what, we'll use your gas and I'll take you to dinner and go see a movie. So I was like, okay, cool. So we went and saw Zach and Mary make a porno and went to Applebee's for dinner. And I threw up the food. Whoops. But it is what it is. So I finally got the courage to tell my parents, but I didn't know when I was going to tell them. So the one day I said to my mom I needed to talk with her, so we went to our favorite lake where we always talked. I could always talk to my mom about everything. Still can. And we get to the lake and I told her, I said, Mom, I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. And she's like, well, what do you want to do? And I told her how I was thinking about getting the abortion. And she told me, hey, you gotta do what's best for you. She goes, that's probably your best option. She goes, but you gotta tell your father. Those words I did not want to hear, that I gotta tell my father. Why can't I just do this and not ever have to tell him? Yeah, I love my dad, but I just didn't want to tell him. But I did. And my dad was upset at first, but surprisingly, he wound up being very supportive of the decision. And he was the one who wound up taking me to get the abortion being done. I will be forever grateful for that. People ask me that do know about the abortion, which not many people do I regret it? Yes and no. Yes, because I often wonder what it would be like, what this baby would have been, considering I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. No, because I chose the best option possible. And it made me who I am today. So in time, I made peace with that decision. There's times where it still haunts me, but I, for the most part, made peace with it. And I've asked God for forgiveness, and hopefully, I'm pretty sure He forgave me. And so after that, me and Sean started dating exclusively. And Sean had got me some for Christmas that year, a big coffee set. Best Christmas present ever. To this day, he has yet to get a better Christmas present than a whole thing of 50 million different kinds of coffees and 2 coffee mugs. So, then about a year or so later, me and Sean started getting really serious, and I was staying more and more with Sean than at my own parents' house. So that was fine. And the one night while we were sitting down watching TV, his brother had called and told us that he needed to get to the emergency room because he got something in his eye. So we take him to the emergency room, and while we're in the emergency room, yours truly passes out. Yeah. Word to the wise, don't pass out in an emergency room. Not a good idea. They want to check you right away. So I went to so I was admitted then into the ER, and they were asking me all these questions, like, could you be pregnant, and da da da. I'm like, there's no way I could be pregnant. I said, I just had an abortion. There's no way. Well, they did a pregnancy test anyway. Came out negative. Told them. They didn't listen, but I told them. So they told me that my results of me passing out was because of severe dehydration. Never once told me that my sugar was high, or to check my sugar, or get my sugar checked, all that. Okay. So they sent me home that a couple hours later and stuff like that. I go home, not feeling well, but I was like, alright, I'm dehydrated, drinking tons of water at this point in time. As time went on, me and Sean were getting more and more serious. And then eventually we decided to buy a house together. March of 2010, we bought our house where we're still living to this day, right now. And my migraines still would not go away. Knee pain would not go away. And for the longest time, up until I'd say probably about 9, maybe 10 years ago, Sean always thought when I told him I had a migraine that it was just a bad headache. Anybody who's not a migraine sufferer doesn't understand the difference between a bad headache and a migraine, or just a headache. I would give the world to have just a headache. And finally, after so many years, he finally was convinced, oh my God, she does have migraines. So back in 2012, I decided to enroll in Empire Beauty School because I was laid off from my job because it was really, really slow. And I enrolled. While in beauty school, I had passed out again. Went to the hospital, and they pretty much told me it was because I was severely dehydrated. Okay. Years later, present day, I saw my medical records on both those times. My sugar was extremely high, but nobody said anything to me. Surprise, surprise. To get my sugar checked. Fast forward to 2016. I wasn't feeling well, and I went to the emergency room because I had passed out, and once again they tell me it's because I was dehydrated. And I sucked it up to, because I didn't have insurance, they didn't do a thorough examination and all that. 2018, I went to the emergency room again, and I had a UTI. Once again, not till years later, when I looked at my medical records, my sugar was also high then. None of these times, any of the doctors ever said, you really need to get your sugar checked or under control, or have someone go check on your sugar, whatever. Nobody ever said that. They always sucked it up to dehydration, or the latest from that was the UTI. Later that year, in 2018, we were at Applebee's, me, my mom, and my youngest brother, Bobby, because he was moving to Florida. We're at Applebee's, and at this point in time, I weighed 235, 240, at only 5'2" and 3/4. Not the healthiest weight to be at. I wanted to lose it, but I didn't know how. So, and I had always put sugar in my coffee. Still suffer through the migraines. And we're all sitting there eating, well, before we got our food, and I asked for my coffee, and I was putting sugar in my coffee, and my dad says to me, you better watch yourself with the sugar. It will catch up to you. I'm like, Dad, I'm fine. No need to worry about it. Well, with that, I had passed out. They called an ambulance. I didn't want to go to the hospital, but I had to because my sugar was high. But they didn't tell me this. They said I was dehydrated and that my heart rate was through the roof. So once again, I was released from the hospital as dehydrated. And then on Monday, I went back to the doctor's because my heart rate, I still wasn't feeling that great. And I sucked it up to stress from work and everything. And the doctor told me that I have a form of tachycardia, just don't know what kind, but my heart is extremely high. And all he kept saying is, you need to get insurance, you need to get insurance, you need to get insurance. Not saying why I need to get insurance, except for because my heart rate is high. So that was all craziness in the meantime. And I get home from there, and I told Sean all that what was wrong. He goes, that just doesn't seem right. I'm like, yeah, well, that's what they told me. Then December, wow, not December. So now fast forward to May of 2020, in between quarantine, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. Sean and I are working on my dad's Jeep. Well, it's actually my Jeep, but we had given it to my dad. And Sean had dropped his wrench Not completely on the ground, but like underneath the motor carriage or something. And I've helped him with cars many, many times before. So I said, I'll get it. I said, just lift me up a little bit and I'll get it. So he lifts me up a little bit and I go to get it and I go to clear myself, but I didn't clear the fender fast enough and I bruised my ribs. And that is where my story really starts to get interesting in the next video. Stay tuned. Love you all. Peace.